As always, this show is brought to you by Mass Monopoly. We're an adventure sports agency focused on fueling the brands that fuel us. Everyone here is an adventure junkie and loves some or all the sports we support. We help build adventure brands through authentic, value-based marketing, growing the business without selling your soul. No bullshit, just results. Go to massmonopoly.com for a free consultation. We're also brought to you by 508 Adventure Sports. 508 is a family-run business who want to keep adventure sports affordable for families. They sell handcrafted hard goods manufactured right in their New England shop and have a new line of handmade skateboards on sale now. They also source affordable quality accessories for the sports they love, like mountain biking gloves, skateboarding pads, helmets, and all kinds of stuff to keep you and your family out on adventures without breaking the bank. Check them out at 508.com. That's Five, the letter O, the number 8.com. My guest today is Chad Perrin. He's been working in adventure sports for a long time. Currently, he heads up marketing at the Spacecraft Collective as well as Slash Snowboards. Chad's a mountain biker and a snowboarder, and I think you can tell by listening that he's passionate about both. I've really enjoyed talking with him every chance that I've had, and I'm glad I get to share this conversation. Unfortunately, technology bit us in the ass today, and our connection dropped a few times over the hour, but we did our best to keep things trucking. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chad Perrin. All right, and it's that easy. We're live. I think it's probably early for you, but I wouldn't judge. But I did bring a beer for myself to the podcast, special local to you, I believe, a Space Dust IPA, right?
Who's that by?
By Elysian.
Oh yeah, Legion's down in Seattle.
Yeah, so well closer to you than me. That's what I was trying to get as
Right,
local as I could.
right.
So, I don't know what you want to talk about today. Do you want to talk about spacecraft? Do you want to talk about Slash? Do you want to just talk about mountain biking? I thought it would be cool for us to learn or just hear from you what spacecraft is up to because it seems like it's spreading its tentacles and getting into some different stuff and doing a lot of interesting things. I'd love to just learn more about what you're doing over there.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of, I guess there's a lot going on as a brand. As of last week, as of last Friday, we had a launch event with one of our bigger retailers, Evo, in launching our new line of spacecraft apparel. Evo's always been a huge partner of Spacecraft, even from Spacecraft's beginnings. The brand and that retailer kind of grew together because they kind of had a similar start in time together.
Yeah.
So both of us have been able to watch each other grow over the 17 years of business. And they were actually a critical, I guess, cog in us moving forward with Spacecraft mountain bike because they sell mountain bike as well. It's mountain bike's pretty big industry out here where, I think now mountain biking is really accessible. So it's in its heyday right now. And we definitely didn't jump on because we saw it in its heyday. We jumped on mountain bike because, we looked at our brand, and as many people know, we have the Snowcat logo, and Snowcat kind of, I guess, states that you're a mountain brand. Maybe more on the snow side because it is a Snowcat, but I guess the whole idea started to go down this path a few years ago when I was just traveling from one mountain bike spot to another, whether that be a resort or trail access out here in the Northwest, and just noticing the Snowcat sticker on cars in the parking lot and people, obviously crossing over from winter to, spring and summer
Yeah,
were
sure.
going from snow to dirt. And so, we just started thinking, we're like, well, how do we tap into that? Like everybody in our office probably spends more time in the saddle than they do on the chairlift or the skin track. Not to discount that we like biking better than any of those. It's just, really we have 4 to 5 months here to enjoy Mount Baker and the snow here in the Northwest, but you can literally ride trails year round. So, the original intent was, well, we'll sell some headwear and t-shirts and stuff like that. And then, we started thinking about it like I guess at the end of the day, we're like we want to do something more than just t-shirts and hats, because that's what we've been doing as a brand for the most part, is over the 17 years, is really creating graphic tees and hats and beanies and things like that, and belts. And we
Yeah,
knew we wanted
I had a
to.
question on that. I was curious.
Yeah.
I actually have some of your stuff, but that was not the question. The question is, you guys, I know you started out with hats and beanies, and you do T-shirts,
Hmm.
and some of the new mountain bike stuff looks awesome, and I want to talk about that. I also want to talk about the fender that I couldn't order today because you already sold out, so I'm late to the party. But what I wanted to talk about was, you guys seem to be pretty well in. I'm using air quotes, but you're kind of an insider brand with snowboarding and mountain biking, and you don't, at least up until this year, you don't make the stuff that they do. And there's a lot of people that try to sell apparel or make things and want to be a part of the industry, but they're not.
Hmm.
Do you have a feeling on why you guys seem to be insiders or accepted, or why Spacecraft has the reputation that it does, where I don't think you guys have to work to be real, right? Like the stuff just kind of is, it has an authentic feel to it.
Yes and no. It's a lot of work. We're still a small company. I think the reason why we're in it is we've been in it for 17 years. And in that 17-year span, you look at, kind of the cultural shifts and changes of how people consume information. It used to be, oh, uh, like for snow gear, you would sell a lot of gear, right after the video premieres used to happen. And
Yeah.
now video premieres really don't happen the way they used to, because people are producing content, brands and athletes and influencers are producing content and releasing it in the same day or within a week. So it's changed the dynamic of how easy it is to get out there, and what works and what doesn't in terms of what are you putting out there. I think the reason why we're being widely accepted and we're back on track is we're really a human based company where we want to show a human side. We always talk about how imperfect we are, and so we're not worried about perfection. It's like you look on, like, let's just use Instagram as a handle, is we're not going to be the brand that has all the pretty people.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to utilize that because we don't feel that's very authentic. We feel there's a lot of that out there. We're, it's funny because we talked about kind of like when you start looking at, like some of the major influencers out there, whether it be in mountain bike or hiking or, whatever, all these new kind of spots that are
Yep.
there, or these kind of like genres almost in social media. We said we don't want to be the brand that has the really produced shots or the produced people, like
Yeah. It looks like
our
people you might actually see on the trail.
yeah, well, no, it is that, like we
Yeah.
want to make sure that our cast of characters is as authentic as we are on the inside, because there's nobody here. Everybody here can practice what they preach. We know where the rubber hits the road, and
Yeah.
we believe that I guess you could call it like organic authenticity. It's really from within, and we strive to really keep our brand in check that way. It's like if you're Emily, our designer, she has a term for, there's all these just really pretty girls in mountain bike, and you look at their Instagram pages, and it's just them, very few riding shots, and these just really hot stage model shots next to
Yep.
mountain bikes, and she quotes that as pretty fast. And so we try to, like, we don't want to necessarily have that, because it just feels really staged, and it just feels really homogenous, I guess, at that way. And so what we're trying to do is, we're trying to make people drink a little sour milk here and there to get a gut check.
I
And
think
I
that's
think,
good. I don't think the stage stuff goes as far as it used to. What, like back in the day, it was hard to make videos or even get some imagery done, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
everything would be overproduced and overplanned, almost because it had to be, I think. And now
Yeah.
with Instagram and all the other platforms, but really Instagram and the ability to go from, like, if you rode to work this morning with a buddy, you can have pictures up that day and they're not staged and they're not perfectly lit, but they're real.
Hmm.
And in my opinion, and from my background, I think that authenticity and that reality comes through better than when something's overproduced or too perfect. I think that's lost its luster. Now, if you're scrolling
Yeah.
through Instagram and something looks too perfect, you just assume it's an ad. You just go right past it. It's not something that you're looking for.
Well, I think that's why, like channels like Jerry of the Day do so well, because it's showing the imperfections. And if you look at their feed, it's a mix of amateur skiers, athletes, and pro skiers and stuff. Because
Hmm.
Jerry of the Day is mostly ski focused, but it's entertaining. And they found, and you look at their following, and it's gargantuan. And they're focusing on the imperfections of what their sport or their kind of followers are looking for, and they found a way to really like, hey, this is what we got, and we're going to roll with it, and they've created a brand out of it. And it's really cool to see somebody taking the imperfect route and going. Now, are we always going to be imperfect? No. I mean, we have some, we put together photo shoots and have people go shoot in our product and stuff like that. But if you look at our ambassadors, it's just a mix of people that aren't high paid people or anything. They're just normal, and that's what we want to do. And as a brand, we want to talk through art, and it doesn't have to be high art, like highbrow urban art. We're really looking for this organic, outdoor culture based art now, because the brand used to be heavily politicized art, and honestly, in this day and age, that's just a really delicate, I guess, lake of thin ice to attempt and cross. And we just decided as a company that we don't want to necessarily talk politics unless it has something to do with the environment and preserving the environment. And so we've kind of gotten away with that, or gotten away from the political art and focusing on more of an artistic, organic artists that are within our community that we have relationships with. And, we're talking to them as well. So we're still keeping that in line, and building upon that. And that's where the mountain bike thing came in. It was like, well, how the hell do I enter in, when we made the decision to, like, we're going to do mountain bike clothing. I had to, I just kept asking myself, well, how in the hell are we going to make this happen? And then finally I just said, well, we're just got to spacecraft the shit out of this and come up with a way to incorporate art. Because the way I looked at the mountain bike community is it's always been kind of this stodgy from an art standpoint. It's just been like, here's some bike graphics and here's some moto looking apparel out there. And if you took all the moto looking mountain bike apparel and you threw it in a pile and took all the logos off, it looked like it all came from the same.
Hey, there he is.
Yep. Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
I don't either. I'm sorry.
It's
as well.
technology.
I know. Enter the cliches of technology where you and I can talk in real time across the country, but we can't actually.
Yeah.
Because we're just going to keep having that happen. Anyway, we're back now,
Cool.
so that's good. Where were we?
Oh, I think I was going off some tangent about art and mountain bike, and us building a culture, or attempting to build a culture within the bike community. Not that it's lacking, it's just we saw an opportunity, or we saw a lack of art in terms of apparel, and we wanted to make sure we stayed consistent with that, and to keep on brand, because the last thing we want to do is just make a bunch of stuff that look like everybody else's. So
Yeah, and it honestly, it really doesn't. Not shooting smoke or anything,
yeah.
but the new mountain bike line with the sky shots of the trees and stuff, it doesn't look like everybody else's.
Yeah.
And I know you had a very specific photographer that did that work with you.
Yep.
But I'm curious in general. I know the brand is kind of built around using art to create the apparel for the sports and the things that you're involved in. How does that work? How do you bring the art together? Do people approach you with art? Do you have people that you're aware of and hunting down? How does it come to be?
I think it's more of the latter. I mean, sure, we do get submissions for art, But we have a certain aesthetic that we're looking for. And usually, I mean, I hate to keep going back to Instagram, but there's a lot of artists out there, and we're seeing people that are
Sure.
just, they're able to put their art out right away, and no longer do they even need their own websites. They can just utilize Instagram as that. So for us, it's like a gallery. And so we find a lot of people through that, and we look at aesthetics, and we're like, well, what this person's doing really well, we like what they're doing. And so usually we reach out to the artists now. I mean, there's a couple, higher, more well-known artists that we work with, but we always try to keep a good mix of well-known to up-and-comers, because
Sure, that's kind of fun,
I think
right?
being able to identify talent before it really hits is also a unique skill set that we have. And albeit it's not perfect, maybe the way we look at art is through a different viewfinder than a lot of people, but that's art as a definition. So,
Well, right, that's art, right? Yeah,
yep.
there is no right and wrong.
Yeah.
So, what I'm curious about, and what actually led you and I to meet originally in the first place, is Spacecraft is chugging along, and then Slash Snowboards comes into the picture, and
Yeah.
that's it's kind of awesome, and it's a migration from what you were doing in kind of the soft goods world towards hard goods, right?
Mm-hmm.
What can you talk about that a little bit? How
Oh
that
yeah.
came to be? How it's
Yeah. Well, the parent company that was licensing Slash, Nidecker, I used to work for. So I helped them get Yes off the ground, and Jones, as well as now Bindings off the ground and into market. So Gigi's brand came on about halfway through my tenure there, and I became friends with Gigi through that. And then just randomly, I was at a trade show 2 years ago, or yeah, it was probably January 2017. And Dustin, who's the rep in the Northwest, had Slash out, and I said, "Hey, how's it going? How things are going?" And he says, "Well, Gigi doesn't have a home," basically, is what it said.
yeah.
So I just basically called Gigi that same day. And from there on, we pulled off what I would call really, it was a 2-minute warning, Super Bowl play, and we were able to do a carryover line this past year where we just changed the graphics, the colors of the previous year's boards, and got most of the distributors back on board, and got a bunch of major retailers back on board to keep the brand alive. And fast forward to now, we showed the trade shows, and we're going into a good 2018 season. Really looking forward to 2019. And keeping the brand alive. Slash is much like Spacecraft. It's a very unique brand through its product positioning, its story, the graphic appeal of the boards, and Gigi
It's
himself.
really artistic, yeah. Gigi
Yeah,
himself, yeah.
yeah,
He's artistic, and it fits. That's what's so nice about it. It fits Spacecraft.
yeah. And, he's also one of the most recognizable kind of figures in snowboarding, over the past 15 years when he was part of Uninc with Burton, and his riding is an art form in itself, and the way he approaches designing the boards is very artistic, and Gigi's
Hell yeah.
he's a very articulate person, and really knows what he wants. So I appreciate that in him, in terms of how he presents the brand. And he does a great job. And for me, he's just super easy to work with, super easy to deal with. And I just like his character a lot, even though,
Yeah, he's just an authentic.
we're 9 hours difference because, we're up in Bellingham, Washington, and he's in Austria. So sometimes it's
Right.
tough to communicate, but we managed to do it and make it go. And we're trying to keep Slash simple. We're not trying to, we're not going after any of the big guys. We just believe that what he has created has a place in the industry and tells a really good story. And it keeps people, his fans stoked, and because this is year 6 for Slash. And so he's been able to keep the brand and the fans pretty engaged. And that's a big part of where we're going. So let's just keep people engaged, but let's also innovate and create some new stuff that, people will really appreciate at the end of the day in their pretty
Yeah, some new shapes too, not just the way they look, but he's
Yep.
pretty proud of the way the split nose and the way it rides and doesn't topple over as easy. I
Yep.
know he is. He's an authentic, nice guy. He's one of those people I would love to ride with, but I would hate to ride with because I couldn't.
He's, he's, he's fun
There's,
to
there's
ride.
absolutely no way.
He's good like that because he's fun to ride with because, whether he's on AK lines or just doing, side hits, no matter like when he came to the bank slalom, they had this little, he wasn't competing in it. They went up on the hemispheres and built this tiny quarter pipe, him and a few of the other riders. And they just filmed this little video and it was all like mini shred style, but they had the best time, and
Yeah.
being able to, Geeky really knows how to suck the marrow out of the bone of the fun. Like he gets every ounce of fun out of every run he makes, and it shows in his riding, and it shows in
It
his
does.
even in his smile. There's nothing that really gets him down. Like I've never seen him even ever bummed out or upset. He just somehow finds the happiness in probably the worst of situations.
Well, you travel the world as one of the best free riding snowboarders and get to go to all the best spots. It's not the worst way to spend your days.
No.
No, no. He does. He also just, I mean, I don't know him as well as you do, but he does seem just generally happy
Yep.
and interested in whatever the day is going to bring. That's why I thought that's what made me really more interested in Slash than I already was.
Yeah.
Have you ridden the boards yet? The new ones for this year?
Oh yeah. We've been riding on them since December. So I mean,
Oh yeah.
obviously we're not riding right now just because it's the kind of season ended in April for a lot of us. I mean, we can still get out, and I've been out on the new Slash split board, the Line Hiker, a bit. But the new boards. I'm really into the Narwhal series, which is the straight and the floater. That's just kind of my go-to. I'm on a floater right now, which is a wider, kind of all mountain. It's a directional board, and that board's become easily my favorite. I bounce between that and the Brainstorm. Those are my two favorite boards personally.
Cool. Oh, the one thing I wanted to ask you about that I find interesting, if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine with me. It's touchy in some of the industries, and some people don't find it touchy.
Mm-hmm.
But especially between mountain biking and snowboarding, which you touch both, there's a movement on both sides of the fence for selling direct or selling through local retailers and shops.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I can ask specific questions, but I'm really just curious if you have a take on it and what you're thinking. I obviously have mine, and I think it's interesting to see it unfolding in both of the industries in parallel, and the feelings seem a little bit different in both of them, but the crux is still the same, where you've got the big brands and major retailers, and they at least what you'd see from the outside is the retailers or the shops are protecting the brands that still sell with them.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's the people going direct to the people, and the shops are blacklisting them.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about that. And I also want to talk about what I hear and what I see. So I'm curious what your take is on it.
There's good and bad on that. I think, for us, like with the mountain bike collection, any of the Paris Gore jerseys that we offer, those won't be available on our site for 2 more months because we want to make sure our retailers get the first chance to sell that. And 60 days is a good sell-in. So there's certain products, from a clothing standpoint, it's like you're like for a brand like us, there's not going to be a retailer that's going to buy everything of yours, like from a catalog. So they're not going to stock every style. It's just really expensive. And honestly, it's irresponsible for them. But we decided like, hey, this is our first launch into a new segment. Let's be smart about it. Let's give the retailers the opportunity to be the flag flyers on this Paris Gore stuff. And that's why none of it says all sold out on our website right now, because we're currently shipping, and it would be unfair of us to be shipping stuff to consumers before the retailers even got it in their hands.
Right.
And so what we want to do is give them that opportunity to sell in hard for the first 2 months each time these unique collections drop. I think for hard goods, soft goods it's less of an emotional purchase. If it's just,
Yeah.
anything under $100 really isn't as emotional of a purchase. Whereas hard goods, it's a little bit different. I think when you're going to buy a snowboard or a bike, like that's an emotional purchase. That's where you want to go
And you're
in.
probably only going to get one.
Yeah, and that's where you want to go into a store and touch and feel the product and make your decision. Now, there's a whole thing about showrooming going on that's been going on for years, where a person's going to go to a local retailer and touch and feel a product and then say they're going to go to one of the larger online dealers and buy it, which I think is dumb because, you're going to pay the same price through the online dealer and get free shipping, where you could pay the same price at the brick and mortar dealer and take it that same day. Yeah, you may save a little sales tax, but if I treat, going into a store, whether it's a bike shop or a ski or a snowboard shop, go in and be like, hey, can you do better on the price? Haggle a little bit. I mean, car dealerships do it all the time. Don't be afraid to ask for a little bit. And 9 times out of 10, the shops will do it because they want to get the sale and, keep
Right, they need the sale.
Yeah, you can keep your dollars local by just haggling, if half the kids would watch what their dad did, at the car dealer, ship or when you buy a house, if I'm in a market where I can save $10,000 on a home, I'm going to offer $10,000 less and hope I get my bid approved. So why not do the same thing? And usually the shops are going to do something because they want to retain the sale. They don't want to lose it. They want to keep it moving forward.
I'd love to see the shops come together with the brands and have everybody, almost like a summit that will never happen, talk, because I think what gets lost in the conversations is the consumer, the people that buy bikes and snowboards. Because and first, just for my local bike shop, I've never seen all the bad stuff that people talk about where, if you were to buy a bike direct, and there's some major companies out there that sell direct now.
Yep.
If you were to buy a bike direct and you bring it into your shop, they won't service it. They won't talk to you because you didn't buy it there. I don't see any of that locally. These guys don't care what I wheel in. They're happy to talk about bikes and work on bikes. And so kudos to them. I think that's great. But it probably is happening in places around the country where you're getting blacklisted if you ride a YT or somebody that's selling direct.
Well, I mean, but those, the issue there is if I were a bike shop, I'd bring if you're going to get it serviced, you're going to get it serviced. That's a revenue stream for the bike shop. So, you're all.
I agree.
I mean, if you're a brand, and you don't have an e-com channel, it's going to be tough for you to survive because a lot of the retailers out there, if they don't have an e-com channel, it's going to be tough for them to survive too. Or if they're not doing something digitally and doing it heavily, it's that kind of adapt or die concept, out there. It's just like you got to adapt with what's going on in the market, and be able to kind of predict based off trends that you're seeing. If you're seeing people are coming in and buying your stuff because you have a good social media account, well then, do more, create you can create a web store through Shopify for hardly anything these days. And
a good web store.
Yeah.
You can create a web store that works.
Yeah. And you could be taking orders and shipping, nationally within days. And so, I think we're in a weird paradigm right now, and it's not weird. I mean, it's been going on for a while, right? It's like started with Amazon and eBay, and then you have Craigslist, and then everybody has a website. And you look at all the strong websites out there, and the ones that are doing it right, they're doing good business, and now they become the threat. But if you're worried about them, then you kind of have to emulate them to a certain degree. Like you can't stand around pointing the fingers at all the competition because they're doing a better job than you. You've got to be able to adapt to, well, what are they doing that we're
Well, you
not?
shouldn't be. You shouldn't be, but people do, right?
Yeah.
That's the other problem. Is there's a lot of finger pointing, there's a lot of blaming, there's a lot of entrenched that don't want to change because change means risk for them.
Yeah.
So there's that part of the fighting too, where I think you've got some entrenched large brands that make it harder for smaller brands, but not getting into a brand discussion, more about the stores and how do they service people. I think another Another point that doesn't ever come up, but I don't know why, is yes, it's great to buy local and to have a person you can go and talk to about the bikes, but at the same time, how many people make bikes now? You know, there used to be like
A lot.
four manufacturers. Now there's like 40 good manufacturers you can buy a really nice bike
Well,
from.
I think what you're
How does
seeing,
how does a store put those in there?
I think regionally, you're seeing a lot of regional bike brands pop up right now. You're seeing a lot of regional snowboard and ski brands pop up. So,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of these brands are having to, they have to figure it out. How are there enough bike shops to, what they could do is take a page out of learning from snowboarding. All these brands trying to spread out to all these retailers, tell a story of boutique brands and versus big box brands, but you need not big box, but large brands. You need a mix of the large brands to help bring in the small brands to bring in the customers. They need name recognition.
Right.
So is there enough room for all these small brands? And how many of these small brands are going direct versus going to retail? Like my friend Ty's company, Tenet Components, just launched on Friday too, but he's 100% consumer direct. And he's like, I don't want to deal with retailers. I would just rather go right to consumer and keep my catalog simple and build through that. So I think that's, that's their stance. You look at YT, you look at, Canyon, and now looks like Intense is going to the direct
Yep.
model.
Yep.
How many more people
It's
are going to
endless.
join? And I look at even Transition, you can't buy the Transition complete built bikes on any website other than theirs. They control that. Sure, you can
Right.
go on some websites and buy a complete Transition bike, but it's not going to be the same builds that they offer. So,
And
there's that.
Transition's still working. If I'm not mistaken, they're still working with the local shops where you
Oh,
buy
yeah.
online and basically pick it up assembled at the shop. So they're not going around or cutting out
Right.
the stop. They're just making it easier for people to buy their
Yeah,
bikes.
exactly. So, and they're giving the retailers that profit. So, they're being a full support force for them. So, I guess, nowadays there's so many options. There's a bunch of different ways to skin the cat. And I think the main thing is being very transparent with your retailers and your distributors and saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what we do. And I was, like for us, we were very upfront with our retailers saying, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're not going to put the Periscore collection up on our site for 60 days. You guys get a
Hmm.
chance because I rather them sell out of it than us. I rather not ship one of those items direct. If our retailers can get through all the inventory for us, then that's a good problem to have because your retailers
Yeah.
are picking up the phone and you're supporting them, and that's our way of high fiving our retailers. Now, like we have our branded gear up on the site, but that's not as special as the Periscore stuff.
Hmm.
It's part of it's special to us. I mean, I'm riding that stuff. It's the same exact stuff as the Paris stuff. It's just, different graphics. And so, for me,
Right.
I find it special, but, I think what everybody's gravitating to is more the art side of it for us. And so rather than, hey, let's, you know, take money off the table for our retailers. I'm like, let's put money on the table for our retailers by not selling direct, having an offset to the selling direct, and in the hopes that maybe we'll be mostly sold through, which at this point we're going to be mostly sold through in the next few weeks on that
Well,
stuff.
yeah. Rather than me versus you, why not have
Yeah,
a let's all figure out a way to win, right? We're all in
yeah.
the same game. We're all in the same business. Let's figure out a way to win. I think you bring up an interesting thing about regional brands, which is definitely happening right
Hmm.
now in snowboarding and in mountain bikes. I think maybe even more in snowboarding, just because there's the mountain bike's a bit more of a complex
Yeah,
item to
yeah.
create and bigger ticket. But there is regionalized brands like Transition. They're awesome, right? But they're way heavier out where you are than they are in the East Coast or in other places. They're not as heavy worldwide or even throughout the whole United States yet. But so what is a brand like Slash? You mentioned you guys are a boutique snowboard shop.
Hmm.
Maybe not boutique, but not giant. You're not Burton.
Hmm.
So what, like, how do I get a Slash? right? How do you solve that problem where, East
Uh,
Coast, there's probably,
I think it's just, we point people to retailers. I mean, like we have we're a small company. There's five of us here. And so we just try to do the best job we can of pushing, like finding out like, well, what are you looking for? Hey, I'm looking for a Brainstorm 154. It's like, okay, well, we know who has those and giving them some options to get that.
yeah,
That's usually what we do. Eventually we will probably sell Slash online. It's just, we haven't really made that call. The issue for us selling online is we got to carry the inventory, and it's like,
right.
well, how do
And
you know?
again, small company.
How do you know? Well, one, you're taking a financial risk, and how do you know what stuff's going to sell? So if you're going to do it, it's going to be pretty small. The issue we have is we're typically cleaned out of inventory pretty quick because, and rather than doing the issue with snowboarding of yesterday was, okay, we're going to do 25% overbuild based on our booking numbers. And so a lot of these companies ended up with a ton of extraneous inventory. And where does all that stuff go? It all goes closing.
Hey, sorry, I don't know what happened there. Same thing, I
You know
guess.
what? You know what I think it is we're on. I think our internet here is DSL, so don't worry about it.
Mm.
It's just that's how fancy our neighborhood is. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, it's a
so
trade-off for being in the mountains, right? And getting to
yeah.
ride and
Well, we're
having
not in the
you.
mountains. We're in a regular city. It's just I think I don't know
No, but
why.
you're in the mountains compared to us. What I mean is that you can snowboard and ride on the same day. You have
Yeah.
for me to get to a real mountain, I'm driving 2.5 hours. I don't think
Nice.
you're have that same problem, right?
No, well, we're driving an hour and a half, but to go ride a bike, it's 5 minutes. So
Yeah.
we get the best of both worlds. So, anyways, back to my conversation. We
Yeah.
for online for Slash, there's a bunch of risk. If you end up with a bunch of extraneous inventory, it gets you have to sell it off at a discount, and it gets closed out, and it and snowboarding learned a hard lesson over the last probably 15 years where people were just
Yeah, big time.
like the big guys were flooding the market with a lot of because they have to meet their factory minimums and more, as well as some of them have shareholders, some of them have big bottom line expectations, and so they build product in order to sell that, and then the stuff goes at 50% off at the end of the year or steeper, and then it gets flooded with like as discount goods in either the late season or in the pre-season of the next year. So it's a delicate balance. Do you want to protect your brand equity, or do you want to just string it out? And I choose not to string out a brand and try to keep brand equity and value at a higher level rather than brand volume. And like none of us are driving fancy cars here, probably as a result. Maybe because we're frugal and more pragmatic, and that's fine. I think you got to have that
No,
as a
I'm on the same
brand.
team. I agree with you. I would much rather care about and maintain the integrity and the quality of the brand than get into a discount premium, discount premium, discount premium
Yeah,
cycle that retailers tend to get into when they hold too much inventory. I agree. And actually, with Slash, I you have stores. So like it's not something I would go to a couple of towns over, but you guys have a pretty good job of where I could go. There's somewhere I could go buy one. I think that the challenge comes in where not everybody does that as well as you guys, and that might come from your experience with other online channels and dealing with retailers and putting things into shops. But let's say there's a lot changing in both industries right now. There's a
hmm
lot of new companies coming online with awesome tech and great ideas, but not all those people know how to manage or even get plugged into a network of retailers or reps, right? So I guess back to the consumer, how do we make sure that we know about the Slashes and the Marhars and all kinds of new brands that are coming about that I can't my local store will not have any of them. It's going to
yeah,
have Burton, it's going to have GNU, it's going to have LibTech. It's going to have the top 5 brands everyone's heard of and none that no one hasn't. And that's
right.
what they're going to carry.
And I think that, that comes with there's a bunch of different retailer types. There's for us, for Slash, it's just staying in front of the consumer. So making sure you're communicating daily on social, and that you're building a network of an email database to communicate newsletters and happenings and things like that. At the same time, building the brand awareness helps the retailer see it too, right? The more people that see your brand and go after a local retailer to carry it, the better chances bringing it in. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. You've got to really invest in being on the road, because showing up to the trade show is one thing. But you got to remember, when you show up to a trade show, that's a 3 to 4 day event where the retailers have to see as many of their brands as possible. So a lot of times, if you're
and there's 1,000 of them there too, right?
Well, and that's the thing is, like, I tell people, like, if you're a new brand, don't waste your money on the trade show. Get people on your product. Go do demos. Like, get people.
Demos, right. I was going to ask, how well do demos do for you? It seems like that's a good way to connect with people to the product, right?
Yep.
Get on it, ride it.
I mean, that is the only way to get people on your product, is to really do the demos and be vigilant about them. I mean, we did a pretty heavy Northwest demo our rep put together this year, and that's, this is our strongest territory in the U.S., and, we're in, the best of the best retailers between here and the Rockies. So, I think if you're out there putting, the snowboards are an emotional purchase. It's going to be hard for somebody just to buy a board without trying it. But they do, and we have great customer service here. So if they're not happy with what they purchased, we try to figure out a way to make them happy, so we don't lose a customer. But I think if brands are out there doing demo tours, that's because when you do the demo tours, what do? You go and you visit the retailers too that are local to those demos, even if they're not a current retailer, because a lot of times when you do a demo, you want to tag it with the retailer if they're local, and that really that just builds that bond, and it gives you the opportunity to have face-to-face time with the consumer and with the retailer. So you get it's a win-win situation, and you get to snowboard. So
you get to snowboard. That's the win.
Hopefully you're able to get some laps in and enjoy it and see new things. I mean, that's on the company side. But
my favorite part of being connected to the industries that I love is, like, we're in advertising, right? We're a marketing firm, but we deal in the adventure sports that we like. So, like, in a couple of weeks, I'm heading to NEMBA Fest, which is a huge mountain bike festival. It's awesome up in Vermont, but that's a work trip, air quotes. That's a work trip. That's something I'm doing for work, which is awesome. That's a pre-designed way to spend your time. That you can't beat that. But I was talking to my local shop right nearby, a snowboard owner, and he said that one of his biggest problems, so they sell primarily snowboards and skateboards, right? They're a board shop, board sports. And they sell a ton of skateboards, but the margin's tiny in skateboards. I think that I make skateboards too for fun. But so the margins, there's no margin there. That's like an awesome sport that you just trade on a lot of them. Yeah. So they basically they hold their business in the retail shop by snowboards. And he said people used to buy a new board every couple of years, and now they're holding on to boards for like 5 years, even 7 years. And that's been a trend that's totally changed his business. Have you guys seen that? Or do you think that's more the major brands and the people that buy in store?
No, actually, I'm seeing the opposite. I'm seeing people buy a new type of board each year because the whole quivering effect is going up, especially with the rise of carving again. You're seeing people buy these cool shaped boards, and more unique shapes are coming out because snowboarding finally got its head out of its ass of being too cool, and like having to be on a level of like a Travis Rice or any of these big video guys, and being able to take it down a notch and do cool stuff. I mean, I look at like kind of what Yagoon started and things like that, like taking super simple features and really making them awesome. And then the whole carving thing, like, so I'm seeing different, like we're seeing people that are going out and buying new equipment every year because the carving effect and the, not everything has to be super huge effect has had a really positive impact on snowboarding. A couple of years ago, it was, after Jeremy released Deeper, Further, and Higher, like split boards were everything. And now I'm seeing still split boards, like on being sold on the East Coast, and not that, I mean,
Yeah,
it's very
definitely.
niche out there, but now you're seeing this carving thing. Like carving is cool where, when I was growing up on the East Coast, like we rode hard boots for racing and then went to our soft boots for
Yep.
like, I was quivered out back in the early 90s. And,
Yep.
to see, now the hard boot thing isn't as big as it used to be. But what kicked it off was there was this random Russian snowboard group video of these guys that came out probably 2 or 3 years ago, maybe even four, of these dudes doing some incredible like video of carving in hard boots, like doing like the limbo and stuff. Like it's
Yeah.
pretty impressive. And I think that really, like, people are like, oh, I could go do that in soft boots. And that kind of kicked off this whole new thing. And then you look at, I have to go back to Jeremy, doing his whole art of the carve video this past year. It's like, like a lot of people used to hate on hard booters, and I, friends would be like, "Oh, that's lame," and I'm like, "Yeah, but you're a fan of Jeremy Jones, right?"
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, I love Jeremy." I was like, "Look up Jeremy Jones from like 1995 and 94, where he was in hard boots, racing. That's now considered cool." So I think it's, for a retailer, if they're having slow, they're seeing people not buy boards every 5 years, then they really need to look at what their offerings are, because you should be able to buy a new board every year. Like,
What you were saying, I couldn't agree more. I'm glad carving is back. I'm not an X Games rider. I'm not doing big 20-foot airs on a half pipe. I like snowboarding. I always have. I've been doing it since I was a kid, and I like air, but I just like riding. And I think
yeah,
snowboarding has, yeah, you alluded to it, but they've alienated a lot of people, and it hurt their business over time. They thought just going with the big games, X Games, just cool gnarly stuff was the way it was, and if you weren't that, you're not cool, and that's not who buys snowboards. That's not even
no,
1% of the market. That's
no,
not the
it's
people riding at every resort.
and I've been in the snowboard industry all my life, and I'm guilty of it. From when I was running option snowboards, of like, well, what's our focus? It's like, but our focus was really product. But sure, I wanted to have the best team and win medals and have the best video parts out there. But even back then, we knew we were only catering to 1% of the market. Like, our advertising was catering to the shop employees, to help
Hmm.
sell the stuff. So we had to change our PR approach and everything like that to get the product out into the right channels for people to get hungry about it and really focus on the everyday rider. And that's what we did. And it changed the
Yeah,
dynamic of the brand. And that's what you need to communicate to. You need to make things attainable for people and real.
accessible. Yeah, make
Yeah.
it real for the people that buy it. I think mountain biking is running itself into the same risk. It's earlier on, and it's not totally
Well,
there yet. But
I think it's getting better. I think you're looking at the rise of the kid and the tween market right now in bike, because I'm seeing it here. I mean, every elementary school in Bellingham has a mountain bike club, and because my kids are in it, and
that's awesome.
I'm one of the coaches. So and you're looking at the prices of mountain bikes coming down because they have to do something. It's not like they're seeing all these kids want to get into it, and so parents, this is also a generational change. We got a bunch of parents that wanted their kids to do the things they did because they still want to go do those things. Yeah, of course we got to go to soccer and football and basketball, baseball, and all that stuff, but if we can get our kids into those things, it's good. It's a good thing, and I see bike going in that direction. You're seeing more kids bikes, or 24s being offered and 20s being offered in terms of size.
Yep.
So like it's changing, and it's changing for the better. And the beauty about mountain biking versus snowboarding is the accessibility is way better, because most trailheads, you're not going to a resort or a ski area and have to pay a lift ticket.
No.
And like, that's been the biggest issue with skiing and snowboarding, is it's on the supplier side, we're able to, like, we're being forced to offer cheaper products so everybody can do it. But for the most part, on the mountain and the resort side, it's going the opposite way. It's very elitist, and it's very hard for people to go to the mountains. So now parents are like, well, do I spend money on skis and snowboards because I got to spend how much is my cost daily to get to the mountain, versus if I just invest in a mountain bike, that mountain bike will last a couple of years and I have zero investment really in any sort of lift tickets unless we want to go ride one day.
Right, and
But
that's once in a while. You don't need it to do the sport.
no,
Like I'm going for a ride today after this, and I'm going to drive 15 minutes, meet a bunch of buddies, and ride into the woods.
yeah,
That's what we're going to
and
go
that's
do, right? And
and
it's going
and
to be
that's
awesome.
it's way more organic and it's way easier to do. So in a way, I mean, mountain biking is already bigger than snowboarding and skiing combined. The user participation levels are through the roof. But you don't have that noose around your neck of additional cost. And, you look at how much it costs to go to Whistler or any of the Vail resorts these days, and it's near impossible. I mean, for a family, it's
Yeah,
it's
forget it for a
it's
vacation.
completely suffocating. And so, like me, with my family, I mean, thank God Mount Baker is affordable, and it's a privately held mountain, and it'll stay affordable.
Hmm.
But like all these new places, like I just read that Vail bought up 4 resorts yesterday, or
Yeah,
the
one
day
of them's
before.
Okemo.
One of
You
them,
you you know
Stevens
Okemo, right, from
Pass.
your
Oh
your
yeah,
East Coast time?
oh yeah, yeah. I go to Okemo quite a bit. So it's now are those mountains going to become inaccessible from a cost standpoint? So there's a lot of hurdles on the
Yeah,
snow side that the resort and the area side need, because that's always been the 7 degrees of separation. Is cool. Okay, well, on the supplier side, we're going to do it. We're going to make some product that that can help people's wallets out. But on the resort side, it's it's all real estate driven. So they don't really care. They don't look at that. They're just they're not looking at and then they're wondering why, like, well, why aren't many users coming to our mountains before it? I'm
right.
like, well,
Why are our lift rates
don't
down? Why aren't we
because
selling out as many tickets?
well, they'll always point the finger to us, and we're just like, it's not us. You're when a soda costs $8, like it's just like that, and that lift ticket
No,
is 100,
no shit.
120, like, and then you're a family of 5. Well, you do the math, like,
Right.
okay,
I can go to
like
Disney for a week, or I can come skiing for one day. I think we're going to
exactly.
Disney.
Or we can go mountain biking, and I'll put all that money that I was thus invested into snow is going to go into something else. And
Right.
honestly, it may be we can do it more often. So I
What?
think that's the challenge on the snow side of the accessibility. The accessibility is great on the product side, terrible, it's downright deplorable on the resort side.
Yes, but what the one thing that I think is cool. I mean, I love riding at a resort, and we have a local
Sure.
one here, and I love, and it's fun and it's awesome, and I don't want to disparage that, but there is a definite problem for an average family to spend
Yeah.
any kind of time to really get good at the sport, to love the sport, to really be invested in it. It's very expensive, and it's difficult for most people.
Well, it's
And
creating
what I love seeing
well, I think the
what I
issue
love
is
seeing happen is the street style snowboarding. We've got kids,
yep.
in one binding and riding and just riding anywhere they go. But also a huge thing that it's fairly new to me. I guess it's not a new sport, but it's not big by any stretch. Is snow skating. Not, and I don't mean the kind that they're on a riser, like there's a board on top of a ski and you see them at the resorts, because I've seen those for a while. But have you seen the snow skates that are they're like a modified skate deck? Have you seen those yet?
Which ones?
Like there's a company called Ambition Snow Skates.
Oh
They're
yeah,
out
yeah,
of
snow skates. Yeah, I've seen
yeah,
a bunch of them.
it's
Yeah, snow
awesome.
skates.
You
Yeah,
can take it in your backyard. You can take it down to your local skate park when it's snowed in and still
yep.
ride. You can go right out in your yard. I mean, it's literally skateboarding on top of snow. It's dynamite. I think if that existed when I was a kid, I might have never got into snowboarding.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty
I love
cool.
seeing I love
There's
seeing that come around.
yeah, yeah. I think and snow skates have been around for a while. I mean, but I don't think they've had quite the success that snowboards had. But they're still,
No,
they're
no, not even close.
but it's still cool to see. There, we sponsor a bunch of snow skate contests out here, and it's it. I mean, those guys are gnarly. I mean, they're doing some cool stuff. Then there's the pow surf thing where it's just you don't have any bindings and you just ride, basically
Yep.
surfboards in the pow, and it's cool to see that too. There's all kinds of great things going on, and I don't mean to downplay it. I think snowboarding's in a really good renaissance right now, and we're seeing
I
it
agree. I think
it
we're in a good
pick
place
up.
for all the sports we're into.
Yeah,
They're all growing. That like snowboarding's finally, I think, starting to grow again. Everything is starting to The sports are starting to grow around the actual base that uses them, which I think is cool. Like you said, the mountain biking, the bikes are becoming more accessible. I mean, you can buy a high end bike for half what you could,
Yep.
5, 6 years ago.
And you don't
I think
need
that what
the.
I,
I think the issue is a lot of people don't realize they don't need the top of the line build. Like
oh hell no,
you don't
hell no.
need the top of the line fork or shock. You need something that's gonna, and in bike it's hard to get away from because I mean, you want the best, but you don't really need
Well,
it.
they're sexy. Come on, I mean,
Yeah,
they're sexy. Those bikes are
yeah,
gorgeous.
yeah,
But I just think it's cool to see that this, like you were saying, it's becoming more accessible, and I agree. I think the brands, they're making products more accessible. They have to catch up in their own outward messaging that it's not about the World Cup. It's about
yeah,
going and riding with your friends, and that I think that's what I meant. I think it's similarly
yeah,
forgotten the way
yeah.
snowboarding was, where they forget that 90% of their products are sold to people who will not watch the World Cup. The
Right.
downhill, they're
Yeah.
not interested, and
Nope.
that's forgotten. But I think it's coming back, and it's a lesson that they're learning. Um, Chad, I want to say we're about at an hour, and I know you said you have a
Yeah.
busy day. If you want to bounce, we can cut this short today. We can do it another time. I don't want to hold you back from. I know you got a lot of
Yeah, but
mountain bike gear that you
unfortunately,
got to sell.
I'm about four minutes. I got to jump on another call. So
You want to plug anything? You want any
no,
specific products or website for people to check out?
no. I mean, they can go to our website if they're interested, or both. Spacecraftcollective.com and /snow.com. And just check it out. But other than that, no, I don't. I try not to selfishly plug things too often. So,
I agree,
uh,
and it always sounds weird, but at the same time, you want people to be able to get the stuff when they can get the stuff. It
sure.
never hurts. So, thanks. This was fun, and I think we should do it again and keep talking about the evolution of the stuff that we like.
Right on. Well, I appreciate it, Adam, and have a good one.
All right, man. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
All right. Cheers.